Mike G of the War Report hanging out with us on this Thursday. I think a huge goal for Auburn in 2024, I've got as my number 3 goal. They need to have a clear path at quarterback moving forward. So after Peyton Thorne, they need to have a clear plan at quarterback going into the offseason. I don't think you want to add any more transfer portal quarterbacks unless it's for depth and you want a veteran guy in the room to help lead some of these guys. But after Peyton Thorne, you need to end the season saying, okay, Holden Gerner's the guy, or Walker White is the guy, or Hank Brown is the guy. And you need to kind of use your practice time and your reserve snaps in these games to develop whoever that next plan is. And to me, I think that's going to be huge, is whoever is the guy after Peyton Thorne, make sure they're ready at the end of the season.
Zach, we've disagreed on a lot over my time on this show, but this is not one of those times.
Hey,
QB has to have a clear plan. I agree. You could argue that this might be up at number 1 for the future of what Hugh Freeze is trying to build. Now,
sure.
I told anybody who would listen, Auburn is not likely to pick up a transfer QB this offseason. People thought that was crazy. You can't go into the offseason, Mike G, with Peyton Thorne is basically your only experienced option. But
yeah.
The staff came out and they confirmed that they wanted to lean into making the guys from high school feel like their priority. You cannot go out and recruit top-level quarterbacks, Zach, unless you are showing that you can develop guys from high school and then give them the job and let them take the reins. What team is winning consistently right now in college football that's consistently going out to the portal for their starting QB? They're bringing these kids up from high school, man. They're in a system and they're ready to take over when it's time. I agree 100%. Clear path at QB, definitely super important.
All right, Mike G, what's your number 3 on this list?
My number 3 kind of goes in line with your number 2. I think they need to beat Oklahoma.
Okay. All right.
Just simply put, welcome to the SEC. Here's a taste of one of the best environments in college football history. I don't think we have a time on that yet, but these teams have only played twice in the whole history of college football, both times in the Sugar Bowl and both times with Oklahoma winning by more than 2 scores here. So Oklahoma, Zach, has won this game a combined 75-41.
Yikes.
In 2 games, right? It just hasn't been particularly close. Auburn owes Oklahoma one. The last time they played, I think it was January 2017. Baker Mayfield did his thing in that one. We all know he ended up winning a Heisman. But look,
Sean White also broke his arm like the first series of that game or something. So it's like, I don't know if I'm too upset over that one.
Yeah, it's tough, right? But it's got to be better. Like you said, Oklahoma replaces a lot, and it won't be the same Oklahoma team. I think if you can get that win, you're a little closer to that 9 wins that you talked about. But beating Oklahoma, I think, will be an important bat signal to the rest of college football and to the recruits, to that top 5 recruiting class that you want them to land, that this program is headed the right direction. Beat Oklahoma.
Yeah, I love that. And my last one is similar to the one that you just said, but just when you talk about what that Oklahoma game could mean, Auburn opens the season against Alabama A&M. That's a win. They host Cal. I think that's a win. I feel comfortable saying that. New Mexico at home. I think that's a win. Arkansas at home. I think that's a win, Mike G. And then Oklahoma comes to town, and it's just, you've got a chance for Auburn to start the season off with an incredible winning streak and get close to matching their win total from the year prior. I think there's going to be so much at stake for that game. And I believe that's Oklahoma's first road SEC game. So there's going to be some pressure on them too. And I think it's going to be the bad kind of pressure. I think it's going to be the whole all right, we got to prove that we belong. We've been talking the talk for so long. We've got to go out and do it. And I think the deck's going to be stacked against Oklahoma a little bit. I really do, because I think this is going to be the first big game on the schedule, unless you see Arkansas come into town as a big game. We'll see what happens with them. But I just think the fact that, all right, 5-0 is potentially going to be on the table before you go and play Georgia in Athens. I just think that's going to be big. I really do. So beating Oklahoma is going to be huge. And if you're going to get to that 9-win mark or 8-win mark that we were talking about earlier, and 7-win, you got to beat Oklahoma.
You got to beat Oklahoma.
Yep. All right. My fourth one, Mike G, is you have to develop this freshman class. And there's a few position groups that are thin right now. And I think, okay, it's not ideal that they're thin, but they're thin at the positions where you're bringing in some really talented freshmen. Obviously, receiver is the main storyline here, and I totally get it. I think there's questions about what Auburn may do at guard. You got DeAndre Carter coming in. Maybe he fights for some of those and you give him some of those reps. Then defensive line with Justin Rogers announcing yesterday, accepting his is it the Shrine Bowl that he's going to?
Yeah.
Accepting his invite to that game. He's not returning. And so now there's even more questions about the defensive front. Well, you got several very talented true freshman defensive linemen that'll be on this roster. Not ideal. It's not ideal, but this coaching staff has to develop these guys because the both current and future success of Auburn football, the pressure is on this freshman class that's coming in. So this coaching staff has to put an emphasis on developing them. That's been something that's kind of been thrown up in the air as a criticism at Auburn over the last half decade. I think it's a little overstated. I don't fully buy into that, but it's important this year. Nonetheless, you got to develop the freshman class.
I agree. You said something that I really like, Zach, about all the focus being on the freshman receivers that are coming in, but there's an underrated defensive class actually coming into this class as well.
At all three levels, Mike.
Yeah. Auburn is bringing in the 2 top 10 edge rushers in Joseph Phillips and Jamonte Waller. And then you've got DeMarcus Riddick, who somehow seems to have gotten lost in all the hype of recruiting, who I expect to be a monster in Ron Roberts' system. Look, Auburn's season this year comes completely off the rails without this defense. You got to replace some really important pieces. Developing this freshman class, especially on the defensive end, I think is going to be key, particularly because, like I said earlier, they're not sure if they're going to be able to run the true form of this system that they want to run in 2024. So your defense needs to continue to develop. They need to be able to save games for you, make one more play. Think about it. Auburn won 6 games. They are one defensive play away, stop away, and one unfocused game away from an 8-win season. So the talent is there. Develop, continue. I love what Ron Roberts is doing. I think they definitely have proof of concept on that side of the ball. And if I were a defensive guy, I would be excited to play in what Auburn has cooking on that side of the ball. Love the development piece.
What's your fourth goal for 2024?
Number 4 for me is produce 1,000-yard rusher. Look, our guy is coming back, man. He is coming back. If you look, 2023 was so disappointing, I think. At least the first half of the season was, right? And so you've got Damari Alston, who I thought might have had a chance. I thought he might bolt this offseason. And, I'm glad that he stayed, right? Mm-hmm. But you've got Jarquez Hunter returning. He should have been 1,000-yard back this past season. He looked like he had a chance to get it, Zach, near the end of the season. Auburn used to be RBU, 1,000-yard rushers every single season. You could count it and the way they've struggled sometimes to rush the ball over the last few years, I think it's been disappointing. Hugh Freeze, we know he wants to throw the ball, but he's going to be working with probably the most talented backs that he's ever worked with in his career during his time at Auburn. Yeah, he is going to have monsters at running back. I think they have to produce 1,000-yard rusher this year. I don't think it's a question. Lean into Jarquez Hunter. He had kind of a disappointing start to last season because he missed game 1 and it took him some time to get going. But I like them to have 1,000-yard rusher this season, definitely.
Yeah, the balance may get them again because I don't know if the balance is going to be much different next year, and I don't know if it should. I guess the carries that went to Robbie are going to be distributed amongst the running backs.
Yep.
Potentially. But I don't know. So many guys got a substantial amount of carries, and Jarquez Hunter with 146 carries on the year, that number should probably go up. I would think, Mike. I think it needs to. Then Peyton Thorne ran it for over 120 times, which is pretty substantial. Then after that was your drop off. Damari Alston, 55 touches. Brian Batty, 51. Robbie Ashford, 46. Like, I'm with you. I would love a 1,000-yard rusher, but I would almost prefer Jarquez get the same amount, around 800, 850. And then whoever that RB2 is, whether it's Damari Alston or Jeremiah Cobb, can they get to 500 or 600? But it looks good.
Yeah.
1,000-yard receivers, it looks good. It makes you feel good when they cross that threshold. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think this rushing attack could be successful without that.
Jarquez, if Jarquez doesn't miss game one, he hits 1,000 yards this season.
Probably so. Yeah.
Right. So, and that's why I'm like he barely cracks the threshold of 1,000 yards. So I think it's a reasonable goal for them. I think it looks good to potential recruits. You got to show a commitment to a balanced offense in today's college football. I think if you want to continue to recruit at a high level, they're doing a bang up job in recruiting. They are. But you're not going to have, you bring in so much talent, you're not going to have playing time necessarily to sell. Oh, you'll come here, you can play early, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be about what you show on the field. You got to show that you can commit to running the ball as well as passing it, and you've got 3 great backs to do it with. I like the running game in 2024.
Yeah, I love it too. I look at what the running game was this past year, and I just didn't really have a huge issue with it, especially with it getting better over the course of the season. I think it'll start off better next year as well. 3rd in the SEC in rushing yards. I think I would take that again in a heartbeat, especially with what we think the passing game can do next year.